put them in the description so you can have some points of reference. But just some housekeeping really quickly here. If you see me looking over to the side, it's because I have some notes. And what else? Yeah, please, if you're in here, like the video. That is how YouTube will push my video out. So please do like it. Comment, let me know if you're in here so I can say hi to you. That's one of the reasons why I'm live, is because I want to connect with you all. What else? I'm going to be going live every Thursday for the next few weeks. So I'll be live next Thursday at 7 and then the following Thursday at 7. So I posted a flyer in the community tab. Excuse me. Posted a flyer. So please do check out the topics, because I'm going to be offering, in my opinion, some very juicy topics. And let's see if there's anything else before I jump into this topic here. I think that's it. Okay, so anyway, my apologies. Hope everybody can make their way back. And I'm just going to jump right in because I have some stuff that I want to talk about with you all. So this is called The Lie of the Strong Black Woman. And it's a cautionary tale. So I'm going to get to the cautionary tale part a little bit later. But I want to just start off with a quote. And this is a quote by yours truly. The quote says here, "If you don't see your own value, no one else will. And others may even convince you that it doesn't exist." I'll say that again. If you don't see, your own value, no one else will. And others may even convince you that your value does not exist. So, hi, Amayas. So that I want to start off with that, because I think a lot of this cautionary tale comes down to the value that I did not see in myself. And I think the value that a lot of Black women don't see in themselves. And particularly, I want to try to address even just me being on the internet. So it's interesting. On YouTube, there's a narrative about single moms. There's a big narrative about single moms, and essentially we are the destruction of the Black community. Everything is in shambles because of us. And so I'm going to be kind of addressing that piece, because I know that, and by the way, I don't advocate for people being single moms, but I do have some thoughts. But I think it's interesting that I have gotten to 10,000, at this point, over 10,000 subscribers, again, because of my content being the way it is, and particularly the status that I hold as not only a single mom, but also a plus size woman. And again, the internet can be a very not so nice place for plus size women and also for single moms. And so I'm always curious about, what does that mean? Excuse me, what does that mean? How did I get here? Most people in my situation would be hiding. They wouldn't be sharing their thoughts on the internet. Hey, I agree with you. Yes. And by the way, I'm going to be kind of checking the chat periodically and responding. So, but please do write to me. I want to see where you all are from. And I would have never have defined this. Well, I'm very plus size. But yeah, so I think that's interesting, because like I said, most women in my situation would hide. They would be afraid to kind of come out and share their ideas because of fear that people would address the fact that, well, who are you as a plus size single mom? Like, what? What are you going to tell me? What can I learn from you? Right. And so I think my video that went viral, by the way, I have a video that I think at this point is up to 376,000 views. It's interesting, very interesting. And again, the most interesting part to me is that the internet, particularly Black YouTube, if you want to talk about the rise of Kevin Samuels and that type of thing, again, doesn't really, the opinion of plus size single moms is probably not the most valuable opinion in the eyes of Black YouTube, right? So I kind of want to just start off by saying is that I recognize that. And interestingly enough, though, I feel like if you're going to hear this from anyone, it actually should be from me, because people can theorize and people can, have all types of opinions and comments, but you really should be hearing it from the source. And if you're saying that single moms have ruined the Black community, if you're saying that, all Black women are plus size or all Black women are overweight and obese, which that is a problem, obviously, in our community. But if you're saying that, why not hear it from the source? So I am the source. All right, so let's see what you guys are saying here. All right, we got Florida, of course, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My friend Angel's here. Los Angeles. Well, that's your name. I don't know if that means that do you live in Los Angeles, or is that just your name here on YouTube? Oh, hi. Yes, I am Igbo, very proud Igbo woman. Oh, South Africa. Okay, 1 a.m. Wow, I love your commitment. Thank you for being up at 1 a.m. And yes, of course, my friend Jasmine, all the way from Philly. All right. So, and again, thank you all for being patient with me here today. So, all right, where do I want to go with this? So I'm going to talk a little bit about my story here. I have referenced that I used to teach African American and African history. That is true. So I have a master's degree, and I earned a master's degree. I taught for probably a combined, I don't know, maybe 8 years, African American and African history. So I talk a lot about educated Black women. And one of the reasons why I talk about that is because I am one. And I also, was a writer. I used to write for a local newspaper. I assisted writers. I'm not bragging. I'm saying all this to say that, excuse me, there's actually a problem. Excuse me. There's a problem with educated Black women. And the problem is that oftentimes our life outcomes, do not match the education that we attain. So in many other communities, the more education that people get and attain, it leads to different things. Like, the rates of, the rates of obesity will be lower. They will have better economic outcomes, better financial outcomes. Like I said, better health outcomes. But interestingly, in the Black community, I'm speaking about Black women right now, what you'll find is that even with more education, it doesn't necessarily equate to better economic resources, or financial resources. There's still a high maternal mortality rate. There's still a high infant mortality rate, obesity rate, right? I actually wrote these down because there's just so many. If you want to talk about relationships, the marriage rate is not good. The divorce rate is not good, right? So, and again, that other video that I screwed up on has all these some links in it. So if you can manage to be patient, I have a couple articles that that I'll reference in this video in the description. So why am I saying this? Why am I talking about this? Am I trying to make Black women look bad? No, I'm not. But I'm talking about this because I'm actually talking about my story. I'm talking about my journey in terms of my cautionary tale, essentially, is that I was someone who, like I said, had a master's degree. I had all the accolades. Not only was I teaching, I was helping other teachers. So I had all of that intact. Yet I still ended up a single mom. I still ended up struggling financially. I still ended up, plus size, struggling with obesity, right? Like many Black women do. So I still ended up with self-esteem issues, right? So again, I think that one of the things that we often miss is this disparity. It's a huge disparity. And so I want to kind of set the tone here, because a cautionary tale is not just about being a single mom. I think a lot of times we're so quick to jump to, oh, well, the single moms are ruining everything. And we need to really take a step back and look at, well, what happened before that? How did this person even become a single mom? Does this person even value themselves? Does this person even know themselves? Do they know who they are? And I think if I kind of peel back the layers, a lot of it comes down to what I talk about it actually in my book. I have a book called My Own Gaze, Memoir of an Invisible Black Woman. And what I talk about in the book is essentially this idea of being emotionally invisible and not really getting to know my own emotions, right? Getting to know who I really was and my own value. So, Derek, I love the fact that you are Igbo and proud of it. More grease to your elbow. Yes, but thank you, Derek. All right. So, and please do respond as far as the topic. If there's anything you want to add, or if there's questions that you have. So, what's interesting is that, like I said, my life kind of mirrors the statistic. Again, the statistic is the more education that Black women attain, it doesn't equate to better outcomes. And that is my story, is that I attained a very high level of education and so externally, I was the strong Black woman, right? Externally, I was showing up, teaching students, again, teaching other teachers. You know, my name is in several books where people are acknowledging, thank you, Naka, for helping me with my research. And so all of these accolades, right? But I go home and my life actually mirrors that of the proverbial baby mama. I am literally living two lives. And my theory here is that I think a lot of I'm not going to say all Black women, but this is the experience for a lot of Black women. There's a book by Tressie, get her name wrong, Tressie McMillan Cottom. And if you all follow me and you look in the community chat or the community tab on YouTube, I make posts every now and then. So I actually made a post about a book called Thick, and it's by Tressie McMillan Cottom. She is a PhD professor. And this book, it's so powerful, and I recommend, it's like a must read for all Black women. It's not just about being thick. I mean, it is partly about that, but she talks about how even as a PhD professor, that did not save her from, essentially, she lost her child. So she gave birth to, I believe her child was stillborn. And we all know about the racism in the medical field, you know, right? The racism in the medical industry, and like why so many Black women die during childbirth and why so many Black babies die. That was part of it. So part of it was racism. But the other part of what happened with her was her making this assumption that because she was educated, because she had a PhD, right? She was this woman of so much notoriety that she would be respected, that she would go in and people would give her information, that people would care about her and care about her situation. And she found out very quickly that that was not true. Her education absolutely did not save her. And she is a primary example of what I'm talking about, where by day, she is, again, PhD scholar, revered, grading papers, writing books, doing all these things, speaking all around the country. She goes home to a very sad reality of having lost her child. And it was something, whatever it was, you have, I don't want to spoil the book for you, but I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was preventable. It was something that was preventable. And it was something that just like, it was a result of just her, again, like I said, assuming that she would be taken care of. So not only are the strong Black woman, not only is it a facade, because it's sort of this assumption that, you know, externally, I'm good. I'm educated. I have a great career. I'm making money. I'm doing the thing. And people are unaware that there's actually oftentimes another reality happening, is that while you're achieving, while you're making money, while you're a CEO, whatever it is you are, you're doing all these things. Oftentimes, again, Black women are struggling with their weight. Black women are struggling with their self-esteem. Black women are struggling with relationships. That's a huge one. can't keep a man, can't figure out how to get a man. And, I mean, don't even understand men. Like, let's start there, right? Like, I'll be honest, I didn't fully understand men. It probably took me until I was 38 when I met my fiance. That was probably the first time that I actually understood men, was at 38 years old. So this what I'm describing here now is the invisible Black woman. And this is the woman that nobody talks about. Everybody's so interested in the strong Black woman and sort of upholding her, but very few are examining the invisible Black woman. And that's what that's my goal. All right, let me take a pause. Please do, if you're here, like this video. Again, that helps YouTube to push it out so that when it goes, when I'm done, that, other people will see the video, and all that is based on an algorithm. So please do like this video. And Star, I think the Black community was and still is attacked by the system over there. We're just distracted right now. And when you say over there, Star, could you say a little bit more about what you mean? But thank you for your comment. Chris, who started the whole strong Black woman movement anyway? Exactly. So, and that's a good question, and people point to different, people go back to slavery and, well, Black women, Black people weren't allowed to do certain things, weren't allowed to get married and things like that. And then some people point to sort of like the welfare state, in the 1970s, where the man couldn't be in the home if the woman wanted to get welfare. So there's all these different points in history where people will say, well, it started there. A lot of people blame feminism and say, well, it was because Black women wanted to be like white women and wanted to be feminist. And, and so I'm not sure exactly where it started, but I do know that it's a lie. It's a complete lie. And it doesn't mean that Black women have no strength. It just means that this idea that, I'm getting ahead of myself. I actually am going to break this down even further. Okay, sorry. If you just joined, I have all these notes here. If you just joined, just keep in mind I'm going to be live again, not only today, but next Thursday at 7, and then the following Thursday at 7. So please do join me and like this video. And if you feel so compelled, you're more than welcome to donate to my Cash App. It's just Naka Onolafor, or feel free to donate right here on YouTube if you feel compelled to do that. Okay, so I'm gonna break this down. This is her name is Dr. Cheryl Giscombe. And again, I'm gonna put these resources in the video after I'm done here. But she is a psychiatric nurse who studied the strong Black woman for 15 years. So she came up with 5 characteristics of the strong, well, she calls it the Black superwoman. So she studied what she calls the Black superwoman schema. But essentially it's the strong Black woman. Now I'm going to break this down, and I think this is so good. So the first one she says here is that this Black superwoman, so to speak, has a perceived obligation to present an image of strength. So there is a perceived obligation to present as though one is strong. Okay, that's the first one. The second one, which I absolutely love, is a perceived obligation to suppress emotions. This is huge. And then again, she studied this for 15 years. So when I talk about emotional invisibility, this gives me like something to back it up, because she's saying here that there's a top 5. And the second one is this idea that Black women suppress their emotions. And I'll say more about that later. The third one is a resistance to vulnerability and help from others. I'm going to have to agree with that. Very connected to the previous one that I just stated, right? This lack of, this fear, I would say it's more of a fear of being vulnerable. Number 4, a motivation to succeed despite limited resources. So I can see that, a motivation. And this doesn't really sound like it's bad, but I can see it being damaging to some extent if you have limited resources, but yet you are, maybe kind of pushing it to the max with very limited resources. And then the last one is prioritization of caregiving and providing care to others. And this kind of spills over into, well, one of the things she says is that this is in contrast to self-care. So Black women tend to care for other people more than they tend to sometimes care for themselves. And I want to say something quickly about, there's this whole self-care thing going on, especially online. A lot of people talk about, you know, self-care. A lot of this stuff is faux self-care. It's fake self-care. It's not real self-care. And I think we need to figure out what is real self-care for us. You know, like self-care could be therapy. Self-care could be just like education, learning. It's not always, I got my lashes done, I got my nails done, right? Like that, you know, lashes, getting your nails done, getting your hair done. Some of that is like grooming. But a lot of people, Black women in particular, will confuse just keeping up your appearance with self-care. Those two things are very different, right? So, and you don't need, by the way, you don't really need to get your lashes done. I mean, if you get your lashes done, that's fine. But you do need to take care of yourself. You do need some of those, and not just externally, but also internally. So yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let me see what you're saying here. All right, so gotta back up a little bit. Devin, wasn't the strong Black woman movement fueled off the original first wave of feminism? I do believe so. I'm not sure. And yes, and I do know about the, you know, the 3 waves of feminism. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure which wave, but I do agree that the strong Black woman is very much connected to one of the waves of feminism for sure. Danny, grooming is not self-care. Yes. Chris is saying, my sister lived by the strong Black woman doctrine, master's degree, athletic, never been married, no kids, in her 50s, doesn't own property while still renting. Yeah, it didn't work out for her. Exactly. And there it is. I mean, you just named all the things. And I think that, you know, what you're saying here is sort of the trick is that this, I'm not saying, I mean, obviously I advocate for education and you know, women should be educated, people should be educated, but that is only part of the story, because you can have all the education in the world. That's not going to save you if you're coming home, you know, and laying in your bed and lonely. And, you know, as I did a live stream on emotional eating. And I talked about how, for me, how I got into emotional eating was, I think, a result of not having, you know, not really having a partner, nobody there to hold me accountable. You know, it's like, it's real easy to, you know, I was a single mom before I met my fiance. It was almost like 10 years. I was a single mom for 10 years. I was going to bed by myself for 10 years. So it's very easy to sort of fall into negative habits and kind of replace a partner with food. Yeah. So, and Star is saying, oh, by over there, I mean there in the Western world. Thank you. USA, Britain, France, etc. I will say here in Africa, things are not all good. Things are not all good. Okay, and I'm gonna have to go back to your original. Hold on, Star. Now, Star, are you in? Yeah, you're in South Africa. Okay. I think the Black community was still and is attacked by the system. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, Star, you are absolutely correct. We love nails. Yes, Angel, I know. My friend Angel is a nail technician. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but she is a nail artiste. She's amazing. Pat is second wave, I think. Okay, thank you, Pat. And then Alex, it's funny, but I listened to the description and even rewound it to make sure I was paying attention. You basically described a man. Dang. Okay, Alex, that is, wow, that's deep. Yeah. So, and I'm going to talk, actually, it's funny you say that, Alex. I'm going to be talking about, probably in another video, how being a single mom is actually a very masculine position. And it's actually counterintuitive because having a baby, having a child is a feminine process, right? But the role of being a single mom is masculine, in my opinion, because you essentially have to do all the things that, you know, you have to protect, provide, problem solve, all the things that men do naturally. You're doing all that by yourself, and you're doing the woman part too. So, but I'm going to be talking more about that probably in another another video at some point. So yeah, so going back to these five things that, you know, I just talked about, all of this strong, whether you want to call it strong Black woman, whether you want to say super Black superwoman, these things lead to negative outcomes. There's nothing good, in my opinion, that can come of a woman suppressing her emotions. There's nothing good, in my opinion, that can come from, say, a woman who feels like she has to be strong all the time. And so I'm just going to name again some of the negative outcomes. So relationships, meaning lack thereof, for many Black women, poor health, high weight, so obesity, heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes, high blood pressure, maternal mortality, low baby. So, you know, low baby birth weight. So when women do give birth, the baby's weight tends to be lower, preterm delivery, and infant mortality. So these are just some of the outcomes. And again, a lot of this stuff is happening to educated Black women, right? So we're led to believe that everything is fine because if you look at who's starting businesses, Black women are on the rise. If you look at, you know, like I said, who's earning the degrees, I know I said in one of my last videos that Black women are the most educated. Not the most, many people say, no, they're not the most educated, but highly educated, right? So you would think on the surface that, well, everything's great with Black women. It's the Black men that's the problem, right? Because people say that Black women are achieving more, but, and again, I can't speak for what men's health outcomes and all that stuff is, but I know that for Black women, a lot of times the education is a facade. And that is why I named this video "The Lie of the Strong Black Woman." White feminism trick Black women. Nika, do you agree? I absolutely agree. I think feminism in general, I've been talking about that a little bit more lately, but it's tricky, y'all. It's tricky. I mean, I think the funny thing is most Black women identify as a feminist. Most women identify as a feminist, and everyone has a different definition of what feminism means for them. But I think if we're talking about just being equal, you know, obviously, yes. I mean, are we lower than men? No, I don't believe we're lower. I think we have different roles, but I don't. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting something that ads will run shortly for some viewers. Okay, so some of y'all are gonna get some ads in like 40 seconds. But I don't know how any of this stuff works, you guys. I'm new to being monetized, so I don't know if I'm supposed to stop talking. I don't know. So I'm just gonna keep going. And I'm losing my train of thought. You're saying most educated with heavy student loan debt. Yes. So many Black women are educated, but that's another good point, is that the debt is definitely through the roof. Yeah. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but let me keep going here. So, yeah, so I want to get on this point right here too. And actually, let me not, because I don't know if some of you are going to miss this because of the ads. Let me know if you guys are seeing ads. I guess obviously if you're seeing ads. Oh, Star is like, just keep going. Just keep going. Okay, Star. Yeah, I should probably just keep going. I know. I don't want anybody to miss it. Thank you, Frank. I'm doing fine. All right. So I'll go slow. So yeah, for this point though, I do want to say something about being a single mom. And again, I talked earlier about the bad reputation that single moms have. Oh, so I got the ads and I skipped. Okay, good. Danny skipped the ads. So good. Single moms obviously have a bad reputation, right? And I don't advocate for people to be single. I have a daughter. I don't tell her, oh yeah, you need to be a single. No, because I have had my own struggles. But one of the interesting things, so there's this big narrative about single moms. And the funny thing about that is, okay, so yes, if you are a single mom, you are in a particular statistic, and it's, you know, you are in a certain, you know, you have became a statistic. Let's just be honest, right? And not necessarily a good statistic. But here's the funny thing, is that the way I look at it is that, like I'll hear a lot of Black women who are, say, I don't know, 40, let's just say you're 45 and you're like, oh, the worst thing, and all the single moms are messing everything up and the Black community is destroyed. And as a single mom who's 45, right, this person likely is, let's just say they're single and they still haven't figured out, again, how to understand men, how to deal with men, how to attract the right man, how to sustain a relationship. I look at it like there's a lot of single moms waiting to happen, because if you can criticize single moms all day, but if you yourself haven't figured out how to navigate the most important part, which is the relationship part, what is preventing you from being a single mom at some point? That's one of my points. Again, a lot of women are in their 40s and still dating guys that they would have dated at 19. It's like, okay, well, that's also not good. Another point that I have about this whole single mom thing is like, this egg freezing. So there's a lot of women who get to their late 30s and early 40s, and no, they're not single moms. But if you are, say, in your early 40s or mid 40s and you're scrambling trying to freeze your eggs, you evaded the single mom statistic, but that is just another statistic. That is just another major challenge, because not only are you going to have to go through that process of freezing your eggs, but then also figure out, how am I going to find a suitable partner to fertilize these eggs with, right? So again, oftentimes I find that a lot of the women who criticize single moms are not necessarily in a better situation. They're just in a different situation. You're part of a different statistic, but it's a statistic. It's still not necessarily what we're aiming for, what we're rooting for, and very few people have taken the straight and narrow. Like, I don't know a lot of people who's like, oh, I did everything, I did everything the right way. I got married at 25 and I had kids in my late 20s. And then it goes marriage. And then I bought a house in my late 20s and I had kids in my early 30s. Very few people have that story. But oftentimes the people who are criticizing the single moms are the people who, again, like I said, evaded one statistic, but ended up being another statistic. Jay Charles, how do you think those statistics could be improved? Wow, great question. And then Star is saying it's a complex like a spider web. That's a great question, Jay Charles. And I can't say I have all the answers. In fact, real quick, before I answer your question, in my previous video that got screwed up, I'm going to link a woman by the name of Coach Jamila. I'm going to link her YouTube channel. So there are Black women on YouTube who actually do provide specific solutions. So my content is more sort of analyze, more analytical, more historical, more sort of naming the thing. But there are content creators who actually give tangible solutions if Black women, say, want to find love or want to get married. So I will say that, Jay Charles, is that there are women who do that work, and I will be linking that into this video. But I'm going to start with kind of where I started this live stream, is going back to value. So I'm going to read the quote that I came up with. It says, if you don't see your own value, no one else will, and others will even convince you that it doesn't exist. That's where I'm going to start. So to your question, how can we improve the statistics? How can we ensure that not only are women not becoming single moms, but not scrambling at 44 to freeze eggs and, not being able to find a man, how can we avoid all of that? This is going to come down to Black women doing the work. And most of that work is going to be internal. I think there's a huge issue in our community with low self-esteem. I don't think this is something that Black women talk about. I don't think this is something that Black women even think that there's an issue. But why do I do videos about BBLs? Is it because I'm hating on women? No, it's because there are, and again, I'm not against BBLs either, but I think that there are women doing it for the wrong reasons. And so I think to combat a lot of this, we have to kind of go internal and figure out who we are. And then once you figure out who you are, then you can find the guy that God, or have that guy find you, the one that God has for you, and then go on from there. But yeah, great. That's a great question. All right. So where was I at here? So, okay. Oh yeah, single moms. So, okay, I'm gonna move on to this part. So I wanted to just say, I'm going to talk about the invisible Black woman, but I want to just say that, guys, my videos are like, I see my videos as, so I'm a deep thinker. If you haven't already noticed, I think a lot about a lot of different things. And a lot of times what you're seeing with my videos are my findings. So I'll have a thought and I'll be like, wow, I think this is what is going on. And I'll make a video about it. And so I wasn't going to post anything this month. I was just going to do live. And I was like, dang, y'all, you guys know what's going on with Lizzo right now. And I was like, I have some stuff to say about Lizzo. So you might get a video from me this month because I do want to weigh in, no pun intended. I do want to weigh in on the whole Lizzo situation because I think that's just wild. What are the right reasons to get a BBL? Great question, Alex. Okay. So real quick, I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but I would say if somebody's getting surgery, the only, I guess, quote unquote, right reason, in my opinion, this is my opinion, would be like someone who loses a lot of weight, for example, and they have saggy skin and they're just trying to add back volume. In my opinion, okay, if you're getting a BBL for that reason, it's understandable. Or if you have some kind of deformity, or I mean, not deformity, but very not non-proportioned, like extreme. But if you look regular, then in my opinion, I think you should just leave yourself alone. That's just my opinion. Okay, Pat Coaching TV suggestion: one start of solution. Begin with showing and sowing love and respect for self in their immediate circles. Mentor younger girls for feminism, marriage, and marital expectations. Thank you, Pat. Danny is saying, whether you are a statistic or not, for me, it boils down to the person and their thought process. I'll date a single mom whose head is in the right place than a non-single mom who isn't. I totally appreciate that, and that makes tons of sense. That's why I think the internet can just be kind of crazy, because it's like people go on all these tangents about single moms, and it's just like, that's fine, if you feel that way, but that's only a fraction of the problem. And I'm gonna mess your name up. Is it I'm not even gonna, I'm sorry. Maybe you can write your name. It's Anumhlee. Oh, no pun. Oh, you're just laughing. Okay. But please do, if you can write the pronunciation out so I can say it right. All right. So I'll keep going with your comments in a minute. But so I want to talk about the invisible Black woman real quick. This is something that I kind of took and ran with. It's something that I heard mentioned over the years here and there. What is her name? Jada Pinkett, who used to do the Red Table Talk. She did a show about the invisible Black woman, but it was all about Black women feeling or being invisible, sort of to like white people or in society. Like it was more about people not seeing them in their careers and that type of thing. And I thought that was interesting. So I started doing some research on the invisible Black woman, because I was like, I really like this concept. And I think I've said this before. Like I've said, like, oh, I feel invisible, or I've heard other Black women say it, but no one has ever unpacked it. No one has ever, I'm not going to say no one has ever, but very few. And so I started doing some research. I didn't find very much. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book about it. And that's exactly what I did. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to go on Amazon and, feel free to check out my book. It's called My Own Gaze, Memoir of an Invisible Black Woman. But what I want to do now is, because I have talked about invisibility and it has confused people on my channel, understandably, because it's a confusing concept. This idea, like, what do you mean? How are you invisible? And the reason why I'm actually calling this live stream from invisible to viral, right, is because I was the woman saying that I was invisible, and now I went viral. And so it's like, well, why are you still saying you're invisible? Like, what are you talking about? And people have literally reached out to me and asked this question. So I'm going to break that down. So there's 3 ways that a woman, a Black woman, or really anyone, but I'm talking about Black women right now. There's 3 ways that you can be invisible. So the first way is others not seeing you. So again, that kind of goes back to Jada Pinkett and the Red Table Talk, where it was about, women feeling invisible in society. You don't feel, you're not seen at work. There's actually been studies done that people get Black women confused, and like you can meet a Black woman and then go and then see her the next day, like, what's your name? Who are you? So there's studies about how Black women they feel like they're not being seen at work, in their careers, in society, and so on like that. That's one way that you can feel invisible or be invisible. That is actually not my thing. That's not what I really focus on, but I wanted to highlight that. The other way is the way you see yourself. So there's an invisibility there's visibility as far as people seeing you, but then there's also, do you see yourself? Do you see your value? This is more internal. Do you see your value? Do you see who you really are? Do you know who you really are? Right? Like that is also a huge part. This is actually what I focus on. This is what I'm most interested in, is the invisibility. And people really struggle with this, and I get it, and I know, because I'm probably an overthinker. People are like, well, how can you be invisible to yourself? Like that makes no sense. It makes sense to me because for so long, I was not aware. Like the fact that I'm on YouTube is insane. Like I would never assume that not only I wouldn't say that. I wanted to do YouTube for a while, but I had to really be in a certain place with myself to even get up here. Again, as I stated earlier, as someone who fits some of those statistics I named. You know, I'm a single mom, I'm a plus size woman. There's a way in which internally I had to see myself and get to know myself. And so that is actually the visibility piece that I focus on, or the invisibility piece. And I think that if you read my book, I have a chapter called Emotional Invisibility. And my whole theory is that a lot of women are emotionally invisible, meaning they're not in touch with their emotions. And that goes right back to the second point, or the second characteristic of the strong Black woman when I was naming them off. Number 2 is a perceived obligation to suppress emotions. A lot of women suppress emotions and they are emotionally invisible. They are not even aware of a lot of things within themselves. And my theory here, I'm gonna be honest with you, if we want to go back to BBLs, if we want to go back to all of that, I do think that when we're looking externally at what's happening with a lot of Black women, how they look, I think it's very visible that, you know, you could say that, well, and I think some women do wear weaves and wigs because it's a different look. I mean, I was that woman. But at a point where you're seeing a woman and she has a blonde wig, she has lashes way out to here, she has nails way out to here, she has the BBLs, she has all the surgery. I mean, she has all of this stuff, and this same woman could not even know this is the same woman who probably might not even be in touch with who she is, but so very externally loud. But this is someone who might even struggle to sit with her own self, right? The pandemic taught us that. All of us had to sit with our own selves, and many people went crazy. Many people committed suicide. Some people gained 50, 100 pounds, right? Because this idea of having to sit with yourself and get to know yourself. What do you like? What do you think? You know? Yeah. So, all right. Let me read what you all are saying. Sorry, hold on for a second. Let me put that down. Where did I end up at? Okay, hi. Is it Akasha? Hi, Akasha. Getting married doesn't guarantee that you still won't end up a single mom. Facts. That is very true. I agree with that. It's rude to ignore sincere questions in the chat. Okay, I'm not trying to ignore sincere questions in the chat. I just wanted to kind of keep the conversation pushing. So if I ignored anything, please do. You know, if you feel like rewriting it, I'm trying not to miss anything. Oh, I'm glad I caught this live. Thank you, Skin Like Caramel. Oh, thank you for rewinding and listening from the beginning. All right, Alex is saying that to someone else here. Anomaly. I'm just gonna say anomaly. I might be saying it wrong. I'm so sorry. I think people tend to major in Absolutely. A lot of these convos online are nuanced and people are trying to provide a one size fits all solution for individual situations. True. What happens when an invisible Black woman sees an Frank, that is a great question. Well, I think are you being funny? Funny thing is about that, Frank, I think invisible Black women can actually see invisible Black. Like for me, I'll be honest with you, that is why. I mean, would I say that I'm an invisible Black woman now? I think that I still can be at times. I don't always. I It would be naive and arrogant for me to say, oh, I know everything about myself, and I'm still learning myself. I'm still growing. I'm still evolving, and that type of thing. But I think that I'm very sensitive to that. That's why that's why I can make the content I make, right? Is because I'm able to sort of see past a certain thing. And I'm not saying I'm always right? A lot of my things that I say is just my theories, but I try to provide theories where sometimes none exist. There's things that a lot of Black women won't touch, especially when it comes to body image. So many people won't talk about that because they're so afraid that, well, if I say something, I'm going to be judging, and then, people are going to think I'm jealous, and I'm just going to, I'm just the type of person, I'm going to throw it out there because, to your point, I do think invisible Black women can see invisible Black women. So that's a good question. All right. So both the politicians, this is Star, both the politicians and corporate employers want to see people, the working class, not value themselves. Ooh, yes. Facts. Entitled. What does that mean? Entitled much? Are you talking about me? Okay. Well, anyway, let me know. I'm Hali, and I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. All right. So turn off the messy feminine energy. Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening right now. Not right now in the chat, but okay. Okay. So I hope that wasn't directed at me, but I don't think so. So, okay. And then I'm sorry, I didn't name the third in terms of being invisible. The third way that Black women are invisible is, well, this, I'll be honest with you, I'm still kind of working through this third part, so I'm not sure if I should even share it, but I'll try to explain it. It's almost like, so say, as I mentioned the first, when I described sort of like the second way that you're kind of invisible to your own emotions. I think what also happens in this process when you become more aware of your emotions, and all that, you kind of I've experienced entering sort of an enlightenment and more of like a self-awareness. And what happens is that when and again, this is not me trying to brag or say I'm better, but it's just reaching a certain awareness can actually be very isolating, because once you start realizing that, like, wow, I'm kind of the root of the problem here. Like, I can't really, and again, I'm just thinking of different situations in my life, taking accountability and not being so quick to blame other people, not being so quick to say, oh, well, it's because my boyfriend did this, or, well, it's because, but saying, like, I made those decisions. Why did I make those decisions? What did not exist within me? You know what I mean? What value did I not see to make that decision? Once you start asking those very difficult questions and answering those very difficult questions, like, there's a certain light bulb or like veil that's like lifted over your eyes, and you're like, dang. So I try now to live from a place of being more accountable, and like knowing that I can't control other people. Even when I'm married, I can't control my husband. I can only control and be responsible for me. And knowing that, how am I going to show up? How am I going to live my life from that standpoint? But why I say this can be very isolating is that you start realizing that the world doesn't really work like that, right? Like, people don't like, most people want to be delusional. Most people, like, when you talk about the strong Black woman, it might be hard to even convince a Black woman that this is a lie, right? Like, if I mean, you all thankfully showed up here for this live stream, but a lot of people probably saw the title and was like, what? You know, and so again, it can be a very isolating place once you've reached a point where you're like, wow, like I really am trying to learn myself and understand who I am, and take accountability and know my situation is not perfect. No one's situation is perfect, but how can I try to work with the system or in the system? And like, it's a lot of deep thoughts, but the bottom line is you go out into the world and then you try to have conversations with people and you recognize that nobody wants to have those conversations. And you're like, dang, you know, and then, you know, so this is why, and I'm going to be talking about this more next week, but this is why, to be honest with you, I'm on YouTube. This is why a lot of content creators get on YouTube, is what essentially what you're doing is you're trying to find communities of people that understand you, that think like you, or at least people willing to have the conversation, even if you don't agree. But that is kind of, you know, again, going back to this invisibility piece, it's tricky because you recognize that a lot of people, and I do want to say it is a framework, right? So people see the world differently. So I don't want to say that it's like, oh, I'm so enlightened. It could just be that my framing is different. But again, it can be isolating because, it's because you want to be able to find people that think like you. All right. All right, Alex is saying too many people are afraid of getting canceled. Yes, we need more uncomfortable. Absolutely. 100%, Alex. Yes. You're so right. She doesn't owe you an answer. Okay. Okay, thank you. You weren't talking about me. All right. Okay, you guys are arguing in the chat. You're funny. Oh, hi, Talea. So true. We have to take, oh, my good friend Talea is here. We have to take accountability. Thank you, Talea. I appreciate you. Thank you for being on here. Yes, I love it. I have friends showing up for me in real life and online. So that feels good. All right. So the invisible, the strong Black woman is the lie. The strong Black woman is the mask. The invisible Black woman, in my opinion, is actually closer to the truth. Most people don't really know her. They don't really know the woman who's in her bed at 11 o'clock at night, you know, eating Lord knows what. They don't know the woman who is talking about body positivity, Lizzo, but perhaps insecure and body shaming other women, allegedly, because I don't know if that's what's happening. But it could be that Lizzo could be having some issues with her own self, which is why we're hearing what's been going on. But I'm using those things as examples, right? Because Lizzo would even be an example of the strong Black woman. She's body positive. She's out here. She's shaking her butt. She's doing this. She's doing that. She's wearing thongs to basketball games. And we don't really know at the end of the day, is that Lizzo? Does Lizzo really feel like, is she doing that? Or is it somebody behind her team, white people, who are kind of like pushing her out there? Oh, go do this. Wear the thong. You know, twerk at the fast food place or whatever the heck she's always doing. So we don't really know. So we see the strong Black woman. Oftentimes we don't see that invisible Black woman, and that happens not only with celebrities like a Lizzo, but that happens with regular Black women. Is that you're seeing the Naka who's the educated with a master's degree, who's teaching, who's writing books, who is, you know, doing all the things, but you're not necessarily, the only reason why you're seeing the other side of Naka is because I wrote a book about it, or because I'm on YouTube, which most Black women are not on YouTube. Most Black women are not writing books, right? So you must know that if I'm a regular Black woman who wrote a whole book about being invisible, that this is a thing. Most Black women who are labeled as strong, again, are in their bed at midnight, you know, crying. I mean, whatever, you know, we don't know. And I'm not trying to make this a sob story, but I'm saying that there's two sides to every coin. And the lie is to just fixate on the sort of audience facing or forward facing person. That's the lie, because that audience facing, forward facing person is just part of who they are. And I think, in my opinion, in my experience, white women, women of other races, have been given more grace in terms of, they have a softer side, or they have and perhaps they've shown that, maybe is it that they're given more grace, or is it that they show those other dimensions of themselves and Black women don't? I don't know, but I'm just really here trying to start the conversation. Okay. All right. So, okay. Thank you. I apologize, Nika, you in the chat. Okay. Thank you for your apology. All right. So we have the Marquis show. Good evening, Miss O'Neill. For the single mom issue is a problem in our community. Fatherless homes weakens our boys and have our girls looking for love in wrong places. It takes two to make one and two to raise one. Thank you very much. And I agree. I mean, I do think the single mom issue is an issue, but I don't think that that's the only issue. And that's pretty much what I was saying, is there's lots of issues. And single moms is just one issue, but I think sometimes we hyper fixate on that and we never really examine, how do single moms become single moms? What happens before that? And let's kind of see how we can address that part. Star, I don't think Lizzo's actions and ideas are all her original ideas. You can tell that there is someone in her team that tells her what to do. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Sometimes I hope so. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I hope that wasn't all her own idea. Frank, what is the mental lapse women are? What is the? Oh, sorry. What is this mental lapse? Women are not invisible, and we see you just fine. You might have to reword that, Frank. I apologize, but thank you for seeing me. All right, so I think the point here I want to make is that the invisible Black woman and the strong Black woman, these two people exist in the same person. So I don't want to necessarily say that the strong Black woman doesn't exist at all, but it is a lie, because the strong Black woman doesn't exist by itself, by herself. She has multiple layers. And I think those other layers, those layers that only she knows about, the world doesn't know about, that is actually what my content exposes. That is actually why I made a channel that says to make the invisible visible to Black women. That is where that comes from. I don't want to have a channel about my locks. I don't want to have a channel about makeup or, fashion. That's fine. People have channels about that. That's great. There's enough of that. But I want to have a channel that actually exposes the invisibility, exposes the things that it's very difficult to talk about. So again, the strong Black woman and the invisible Black woman, it's like a co-occurring situation. It's a simultaneous situation. Both of those characteristics exist in the same woman. And so to see a Black woman and to make the assumption that, oh, well, you're just so strong. People will say that to me all the time. When I had my daughter and she was little, and they would that's all I heard over and over was, oh, you're so strong. And that wasn't necessarily wrong, but it was only a part of the, because people didn't realize that, yeah, for me to present that strong in public, it took a lot that happened behind the scenes. Okay. A lot of crying and strategy and thinking and planning and looking at my bank account, not seeing any money, and figuring out what am I going to do? And not, recognizing that I wasn't happy living in Minnesota where I lived, and what am I going to do about that? And it was so much going on, but then I would present as strong. People would see me and I was solid, but they didn't know that I had so much on my mind and so much to figure out and so much that I didn't know. And how did I get here? And how is it possible that I have a master's degree? I need you to understand this. I had a master's degree. That didn't save me. It didn't save me from myself. It didn't save me from all the things that the quote unquote hood women struggle with. Because I had a master's degree and I was still sitting in the WIC office. For those of you who don't know about WIC, it is a service that women get who are low income. I had a master's degree, still using food stamps. I had a master's degree, still had no money. I had a master's degree, and I had no man. Didn't know how to get one. Didn't understand men. Didn't know how to pick men. None of that, right? Education didn't save me at all. So again, this lie of the strong Black woman, it is a lie. You know, if you're not including the other side to this woman, then it is a lie. Yes, Chris, we need to educate the next generation about this lie. My nieces are heavily invested in the doctrine and are well on their way to meeting the same end state as my sister. Wow, absolutely. And that is honestly one of my motivations, is because I do have a daughter. And, you know, I in no way am I like grooming her to be a single mom, even, you know, and even though it's hard to say, it's like, well, mom, you did this, right? But again, do you want to have to deal with all the things that I dealt with? You know, so I think that's very important, is that, you know, this cautionary tale that I speak of is very important to let people know, let young women know that, you know, it's more than just fixating on your education, because again, you can get all of that and you could still end up in the same situation. You know, you have to fix yourself internally. Danny, seemed to me the strong Black woman is more important to the Black woman than the invisible Black woman. Absolutely, 100%, Danny, that's true. Again, I even think of people who want to, other than my close friends, many of who are on this live stream, who have heard me rant about this, and they definitely are good at listening to me. But outside of, you know, just maybe a couple friends, there's very few people who are willing to even hear about the invisible Black woman. And these are Black women themselves, right? So you're absolutely right. Frank, I look forward to the videos and streams. I'll buy that conversation. Thank you, Frank. Star, this over-sexualized OnlyFans approach that a lot of women are doing nowadays might be the reason why invisible women want to be seen and get paid in the process. Absolutely. And I do think that, as Star is saying here, there is an Black women are over-sexualized often. You know, I'm trying to, I think I'm going to do a video about twerking. Like, I have so many video ideas, but I want to hone in on the over-sexualization of Black women. This is a big deal, because oftentimes you'll see Black women, and we can look at what just happened at Essence Festival with Janelle Monáe showing her boob, flashing her boob, and Megan Thee Stallion having a twerk and, you know, we can say all this stuff is, you know, India Arie spoke out about it. Everybody came for her. We can say, oh, well, Black women are just having fun. But if we're really analytical here and we look at like other communities, some of this stuff is not, you don't go to an upscale establishment with a ton of white people or a ton of, you know, Asian people, and people are like popping it, locking it, and dropping it and twerking. You know, like, again, that again, there's a context. Like India Arie was saying, there's context. In a nightclub, yes. At an upscale event or at a brunch, no. And what's happening is that, you know, like the young ladies twerking at the Elmina slave castle in Ghana. What? Why are you doing that? Like that? Like, I was there years ago, and it was like emotional. I can't imagine using that as an opportunity to start shaking my behind. For what? So again, we're out of order. We're out of line often. And again, the over-sexualization is deep, because we sometimes, and to your point about being invisible, I think oftentimes if you are invisible, but you don't know it, and you want to be seen, you will do those types of things. How else are you going to be seen? How else are people going to see you if you don't parade your body around? And that is the problem. But thank you, Star. Naka, do you think Black women should stop dating all hood type dudes? It will leave a lot of Black women celibate and lonely, but would end baby mama culture. Oh, okay. When you say all hood type dudes, I'm gonna say honestly, I think we have to look at character. So it depends on what you mean. If you're meaning the prototype Pookie and Ray Ray, yes, I would advocate for Black women to stop dating them. But I'm gonna actually be doing a video about Fantasia. I know I'm all over the place here, telling you all my video ideas, but you bring up something, and my brain went to Fantasia because she is a single mom. Well, was a single mom who's now married to a guy who would be considered a hood type dude, right? Like his record, or he has a record, and he's, I think, from the streets, but he cleaned up his act and that type of thing. So he's no longer that. But I guess I would want to know a little bit more about, when you say hood type dudes, exactly what you mean. But so I think a reformed hood dude, that's cool. We can deal with that. But a dude that's still hood, like right now, no. So, but that's a good question. All right, I know I've been on here forever. Let me see if I can kind of wrap this up. And if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. Sorry, wow, I think I made most of my point. Okay, so I have this very last point here, which is about feminism. So I'm actually reading a book right now by Joan Morgan. I don't know if you've read the book when Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost. So let me know if you've read that. But so Joan Morgan. So interesting. So okay, I know you guys probably don't care nothing about feminism, but I'm just gonna give you a little bell hooks, which I'm sure you've heard of bell hooks. Bell hooks is considered like the godmother of feminism. So like you guys call Kevin Samuels the godfather of like the manosphere or whatever. Bell hooks is like the godmother of feminism, of Black feminism. And so Joan Morgan would be kind of like under her, like not, but she's up there, like she's revered. Now, here's the funny thing though, and this is, I want to really unpack this because I'm not I don't know if I would really call myself a feminist in the traditional sense, right? But I'm not gonna lie, I do consume some feminist content because I'm one of those people that I like to hear both sides. So I would say I'm probably not as aligned with a lot of that stuff because again, that's where you get the Janelle Monáe flashing her boob and all the sexual liberation, a lot of that comes from feminism. And I'm sort of leaning away from that. But so sorry, Joan Morgan, who is considered a Black feminist, I'm reading her, it was actually Audible, so I'm listening to her book. And what I realized is that a lot of Black women who are portrayed as feminist, many of these women are critiquing the system. And so I just thought it was so funny because I was like, her book, I'm not even done with it. It's really good. And what she's doing is she's kind of, how do I explain this? She's grappling with it. She's like, I'm a Black woman and I'm strong, but I love Black men and I love hip hop. And I like to, I like to drop it like it's hot. So it's just, I'll be giving more of a review of it after I finish the book. But I guess what I want to say is that a lot of times, like even me, like I could see people sort of labeling me as a feminist or like my book. Oh, this is a feminist read. A lot of times that happens with Black women is that people just need to put us in a category and they'll kind of just put us in that feminist category, not really realizing that a lot of Black women actually struggle with feminism. And I think it happens often because many of us, as we know statistically, want to be with Black men. Many of us want to marry Black men. Many of us love Black men. But then we also want a degree, we want a career, so you find sort of this kind of like conflicted way that we're going through reality and going through life. And a lot of Black women do that. And so as I'm listening to her book, I'm like, wow, it just blew me away because I actually didn't see her as this hardcore feminist. I'm like, she's just a regular Black woman who's grappling with feminism like we all are. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. I think that hopefully you guys can be a little bit more sort of open. And by guys, I mean like some of the men, if you hear a woman is a feminist, you might want to figure out if that's really true. Because sometimes people get categorized like that, and that may not be the full story. So yeah. All right, let me read some of your comments here. I think I'm done with my thing here that I was looking at, my notes. Chris is saying, men who are about upward mobility, progress, morals are all boring according to the modern woman. Guys who have criminal records, who have warrants, who are thugs are alluring and interesting. Yeah, and this is something that, one of the cool things about doing YouTube is I get to read a lot of comments, Chris, and I do see a lot of men writing the same thing, that, sort of like the upstanding guys, the ones who just hardworking Black men are getting overlooked, right? And then like the thugs and all that, those are the guys. And I wish I could say that it was false, but I do think that there's sadly sort of like this hyper masculine thing, or toxic masculinity, or whatever you want to call it. And it's not even real masculinity, right? Like, it's like fake masculinity. A lot of Black women will gravitate toward that. And I think it's really sad that a lot of Black men feel overlooked. And I think a lot of them are overlooked. And so I'm curious, actually, a question to you all, to the guys, and even to the women on this chat, who do you go to? Like, do you have someone either on YouTube, or I don't know, who kind of is helping men with this type of thing? Because I'm not obviously in any of the male spaces to know, but who would be a guy that you can say, like, obviously Kevin Samuels played that role while he was, alive. But what Black men, or is there a Black man who is sort of a leader, or someone who is like coaching men or helping men who, like you say, are good men and maybe finding it hard or challenging to deal with modern women? I'm curious if you would know of a person, and I would love to check them out if there is someone. John is saying there is no such thing as a reformed dude. He's probably just living off her now, but he'll eventually revert back to the streets full time. Wow. Ugh. I don't know, John. I don't know. I may have to agree with the reformed hood, only because, like I said, there are examples like with Fantasia, who, I mean, she seems like she's thriving. She seems very happy, and he does seem reformed. But again, I'm not going to argue that point. Is it Malia? Hope I'm saying it right. Malia, you've read it, and it's a great book. Yes, it's such, and I'm not even done yet, but it's so good. Julia. Oh, hi, Julia. I don't gravitate to toxic Black men. I'm older, but find even the hardworking men don't take women seriously. Wow. Even the hardworking men don't take. Julia, would you mind saying more about that? Like, why don't the hardworking men take women seriously? Why wouldn't any man take a woman seriously, other than obviously the immature ones? But thank you for joining, Julia. I would love to hear more. Life coaching for men. The challenge for both men and women is a disdain for the fathers. Disdain for the fathers. So are you saying that women, life coaching for men, are you saying that women have a disdain for the fathers, or just in general? So please say more there. Says NECA, YouTube content creator, Black Ram 313 is better than Kevin Samuels. Okay. So are you, hopefully you're throwing that out. I'm going to check him out. Black Ram. And be honest with you, I wasn't necessarily I used to watch Kevin Samuels, but I have my criticisms, Be honest with you, I thought a lot of what he said was accurate. I just didn't like his delivery. So there are multiple guys. Okay, the roommates. I know, but the roommates isn't really, are they still making content? I used to watch the roommates. And yes, you're right. Hafiz, on point. We need to talk. Okay, I'm going to write some. Anthony O'Neill. Yes, I do follow Anthony O'Neill. Okay, thank you for that, Alex. Michelle, sometimes street dudes come off as more masculine than good educated men. They seem to have more confidence and bravado, and some are very intellectual and have good conversations. Their degree life. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. I I mean, and I think both can exist in the same person. You could be a good, I guess a good guy, or and still have maybe like a street credibility. I don't like to box people up. I don't like boxes. Men and women both have disdain for the fathers. Wow. That's life coaching for men. That's sad. I mean, I know I loved my dad. Like, my dad's Nigerian, for those of you who may or may not know. My mom's African American, my dad's Nigerian, and I didn't experience it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think the culture, particularly feminism, could potentially push an agenda like that of having disdain for men and for fathers. So life coaching for men, I can actually see what you're saying. A lot of women are very negative about men, and that can trickle down to their children. So I can see that. The Marquis Show, I can't lie, I've been around the world in the military, and once you prove yourself among men, it is hard to be overlooked. You tend to do the overlooking and be very choosy. Okay. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to check this Black Ram 313 out for sure. Few more comments here. Alex is saying, I have my problems with Hafiz, but his heart is in the right place. As for Kevin Samuels, sometimes the medicine has to be bitter to be effective. Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard people say, you know what? Kevin Samuels had to say it that way. Otherwise, nobody would listen. So maybe they had a good point, because he blew up. I mean, and had he not had that delivery, I don't think he would have blown up in that way. So that is also a good point. Michelle is saying life degree means that the street dudes have an education that comes from having to survive on the street. I see what you're saying. What's the book again? Oh, the book star is excuse me, it's by Joan Morgan, When the Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost. And it is categorized as like a founding Black feminism read. But what I found is that Joan Morgan spends a lot of time grappling with feminism and not necessarily agreeing with it. So Alex is, as for why men don't take women seriously, it's usually lived experience. Danny, a good father tends to make a good person. So many people come from single parent households, and single parents seem to be selfish. Okay, Danny. Selfish people okay, I'm not selfish, but okay. But I suppose there are single parents absolutely out there who's selfish. All right. It says, thank you for your show. Best of future success. Thank you so much to Marquise. And I just want to thank everybody who, again, struggled with me through my tech issues. Again, as I said, if you want to do YouTube, so my next stream, again, join me 7 p.m. right here. My next live stream will be about Black YouTube. I'm going to be talking more about YouTube. If you want to do this, if you know somebody who wants to do this, or just kind of giving you more behind the scenes, but absolutely, I'm going to name it again. I'm the makeup person, the camera person, the lighting person, the tech person, the script person. So believe me, it's not easy. But if you all are interested in having a YouTube channel, I have a business called Curated Legacy, and I do coaching and consulting for those who want to have their own channels and write books and do all those types of things. So I'm looking forward to talking with you all about that. See what your last comments are here. Chris is saying the YouTube content creators of Red Pill Menace for MGTOW, what I've seen, only address one side of the problem, and they tend to blame women. 100%, Chris. You are so right. And I actually want to do a video about that. And I actually probably need somebody to collaborate with, because I don't follow a lot of that stuff. But yeah, you're right, Chris. Thank you for all the thank yous. Chris is saying it was a great stream. Kevin Samuels was a necessary evil. All right. Appreciate all your comments. All right. You guys, again, thank you so very much. I appreciate all of you. And you will see me again. Please come back next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be talking about Black YouTube being revealed. Have a good night, everybody. Bye, Julia. Take care. Bye.